Welcome everybody to week 16. I hope y'all have made it to your championship games. For a few of you guys, I'm sure your championships may be next weekend. Nonetheless, congrats on making it this far. I am Robbie Russell. This is our F2 Prognostication. And before I get to week 16, just a little bit of a recap on week 15, where I hit nicely on Ray Rice, Andre Brown, Jason Witten, Andrew Corliss, Frank Gore, and Chris Ivory. But if you go to the bad side, I completely missed on Tom Brady, who put up a good game there in Miami, all because Amendola and Edelman wanted to catch pretty much everything thrown their way. Harry Douglas, who posted a lousy 8 points, I think, in PPR leagues. Riley Cooper, and Zach Miller, who I will discuss in a little bit here. Nonetheless, let's get right to week 16. Hopefully it helps y'all win your matchups this week and advance to holding the trophy or playing for the trophy next week. Listen, don't be alarmed by these fantasy experts trying to build up, trying to say, oh, Jacksonville's passing defense has really come on here in the last few weeks. Don't buy none of that. I understand they've given up less than 300 yards passing in their previous two games, or in their last two games. But before those previous two games, you have to look at that third game. It was Brandon Weeden who threw for 370 yards. Granted, I know he has Josh Gordon, but still, Brandon Weeden, 370 yards. Yeah, great passing defense that's improving. Anyways, Ryan Fitzpatrick is traveling to Jacksonville to take on that great Jaguars passing defense. But this defense that a lot of people are speaking high about here, have surrendered an average of 24.4 fantasy points to quarterbacks in their house this season. Also, on the season, Ryan Fitzpatrick is averaging just under 22 fantasy points on the road. And in 5 career starts against the Jaguars, Ryan Fitzpatrick has thrown for 10 touchdowns and only threw for 4 interceptions. In 3 of those 5 starts, he's thrown for over 200 yards. So, Fitzpatrick likes to sling the ball. He's got a great running back that can take pressure off. I really like Fitz as a top 8 quarterback this week, but don't be surprised if he puts up top 3 to 5 numbers by week's end. And we'll see what they're saying about Jacksonville's passing defense next week. Andy Dalton. Now, here's a guy that put up a string of 3 great games earlier this season in weeks 6, 7, and 8. In those 3 games, he put up he threw for 11 touchdowns and only threw 2 interceptions. He disappeared. A lot of people started really pretty much calling him out, saying, hey, where did Andy go? He just had 3 great games. Look at now. He's coming off 2 great games where he's thrown for 5 scores and has not thrown an interception yet. And in both of those games, he's thrown for over 230 yards. Not bad. Can we string another 3 together? Well, week 16's matchup works in Dalton's favor, where he faces off against Minnesota. Now, Minnesota, over the last 3 games, they're allowing an average of a whopping 342 passing yards. Wow. Over the last 3 games, not the season, the 3 games, 342. That's quite a big number. In those 3 games, they've given up 8 scores, and they've come up with 4 interceptions. With these numbers, I like Dalton to put that third game together and make it a string of 3. So if you have Dalton, I like him. The bad news is there is a slight chance of rain on Sunday in Cincinnati. So if you own Dalton and you don't have one of the top tier quarterbacks, check the weather status there on Sunday morning before the game kicks off. A few other quarterbacks just to wrap up the ones that I like is Colin Kaepernick, Kirk Cousins, Phillip Rivers, and Jay Cutler. Now you flip to the bad side of the ball. Quarterbacks that I'm not extremely high on include Andrew Luck, who not only is in Arrowhead Stadium this weekend to take on a good Chiefs defense, but to make matters worse, he may be without T.Y. Hilton. Now, Hilton is questionable. He did practice today. It's expected he's going to play, but how healthy is he? We just don't know. If you have Hilton or Luck, I say bench them both. In addition to Luck, I don't like Joe Flacco, Tony Romo, and Alex Smith. On to the running backs, where last week, unknown second-year running back out of Connecticut, Jordan Todman, started for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And with this start, he provided his fantasy owners, which were slim, but I added him in one league and started him in a very deep league, 14 teams. But he rewarded nicely. In non-PPR leagues, he put up 14 points without scoring a touchdown. In PPR leagues, he put up 18 points. Pretty respectable numbers there. The stars are lining up for him to start again this week against the Titans defense, who have really been on the decline here as of late. Really, since their bye week, actually in week 8. If you go back and look at the Titans' rush defense since week 9, it's horrendous. To break it down, in 3 of their last 5 games, starting running backs who have started against the Titans have posted 20 or more fantasy points in PPR leagues. In 2 of those games, starting running backs have scored 2 times. So there's just a little glimpse of how bad the Titans' rush defense has been since week 9. Also, if you look at the numbers, what's really jaw-dropping or a head-scratcher almost is when Jacksonville played Tennessee earlier this season, Jordan Todman carried the ball 3 times for 11 yards, which is, if you do the math, is about 3.6 yards per carry. But what's big is he scored a touchdown. So not too bad for a guy who carried the ball only 3 times. Now he's probably going to be starting. I don't see Jones-Drew playing. I love Todman so much that I say start him as your running back 2. Unless you have 2 good running backs, consider him as a strong flex play for your Super Bowl matchup. Behind Todman, the next guy that I'm extremely high on is Alfred Morris. If you own Morris, do not get discouraged in any way, shape, or form from starting him. The Cowboys, they rank 28th against the run. Alfred Morris has owned the Cowboys. There is no better team Morris has done better against than the Cowboys in his very short career. Earlier this season, Morris ran for 81 yards and threw in a touchdown. 14 points. Not bad from a running back in both PPR and non-PPR leagues. Last season, granted the Redskins were much better last season, but in both games against the Cowboys, Morris scampered for 313 yards combined with 4 touchdowns between the 2 games. Dallas has succumbed to 131 total yards on average. 131 total yards to running backs over their last 4 games. So there's no reason Morris shouldn't at least duplicate what he did earlier this season, but I like Morris to score at least 15 or more fantasy points. No matter what format you use, PPR or not. Other running backs worth a start on your team for your big matchups for Week 16 include Ryan Matthews and Danny Woodhead, Giovanni Bernard, Le'Veon Bell against a Packers rush defense that has given up 3 100-yard games in their last 4 weeks. And as always, your big stud running backs that should include a huge game from LaShawn McCoy. Turn to the other side of the ball, just a few running backs that can stay and watch your starters from the bench this Sunday include Ray Rice, although I know he's going against New England. New England's 31st against the run. I just think Bill Belichick is going to take Ray Rice and Bernard Pierce out of the game and make Joe Flacco stretch the field, throw it down the field, and beat them with his arm. Also, Zach Stacy, Pierre Thomas, and Darren Sproles, unless you own them in the PPR format. And lastly is Rashad Jennings. Speaking of Rashad Jennings and the Raiders, 2 weeks ago, I had Andre Holmes, the wide receiver in Oakland, as a sleeper, and he did next to nothing. 63 yards on only 3 catches. Last week, he posted 4 catches for 58 yards and a touchdown. Thank you, Andre. A week too late. Anyways, look for him to post similar numbers this week against the weak Chargers secondary. In 4 of the last 5 weeks, the Chargers have let the opposing team's number 2 wide receiver lead their team in fantasy points, or lead their wide receiving core in fantasy points. Denarius Moore is back. He's not fully healthy. Matt McGloin really likes Andre Holmes. Holmes has accumulated 25 targets over his last 3 games. So if you're looking for a wide receiver 2 or a flex play behind Jordan Todman, go with Andre Holmes. In addition to Holmes, I also like Alshon Jeffrey, Brian Hartline, Rod Streeter of the Raiders. If Streeter's available, I'd add him. Crabtree, and Cole Beasley, who is my gamble of the week because Terrence Williams is out. I know I said I don't like Romo, but he's still going to have to throw the ball. We know he'll throw the ball. We know he'll throw at least a touchdown or 2. I like Beasley coming out of the slot with Miles Austin's speed, Des Bryant's speed, Beasley underneath, kind of like an Amendola or Edelman type. Also, Emmanuel Sanders and DeAndre Hopkins. Yes, I know they play Denver. They're going to be throwing from the get-go. Hopkins has racked up 54 targets with Matt Schaub at the quarterback position this season. So I really like Hopkins in that game. As I mentioned earlier with Zach Miller, I missed on him tremendously bad last week. I called him a sleeper. He only posts 1 catch for 8 yards. That's a great game there, Zach Miller. Real nice. Anyways, this weekend, I'm rolling with Miller again against the worst defensive team against tight ends in the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals have been scorched by tight ends. Go with Miller if you're in a deep league. A few others are Heath Miller, Greg Olsen, Delaney Walker, and Andrew Corliss, after we just found out today. For sure, Matt Flynn is starting. He really likes Corliss. They're going to throw the ball. They're in the same situation as Houston. Their defense isn't great. They're going to be behind. So look for Corliss to get some nice points there. And lastly, the defenses. I have to lead it off with the Detroit Lions against Eli Turnover Manning. Not to mention, Manning, as he turned the ball over a lot, is now without his star wide receiver in Victor Cruz. Love the Lions there. Also, the Miami Dolphins, the Cleveland Browns, and the San Francisco 49ers in that Monday night game. There you have it, Week 16 of R2F2 Prognostication. I wish you all the best of luck in your championships, in your semifinals to get to your championships possibly next week. I will see you back here next week for all of you that need Week 17. Good luck. See you next week. I am Robbie Russell. Later.